All right, welcome back to the channel. So, according to Canelo Alvarez supporters, Errol Spence is not a draw. Canelo Alvarez is smoking him in ticket sales in Texas because Errol is not the real draw there. It's Mexicans that he's fighting. This is an argument they use to discredit Errol Spence Jr.'s attempt to get a Canelo Alvarez fight and to perpetuate the myth that black fighters do not sell. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, got to go through this one. Errol Spence Jr. is not a draw. This is responses that I've gotten on many videos about Errol Spence Jr. and the ticket sales that Canelo Alvarez just had for his fight with Billy Joe Saunders. So, just to give you the details before we get into the meat of it, Canelo Alvarez is fighting Billy Joe Saunders at I do believe at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. The ticket sales went on last week, and according to reports, there were 40,000 pre-sale tickets sold, and they expect that Dallas Stadium is going to be full to capacity. What does this prove for Canelo Alvarez? That Canelo Alvarez is a huge draw in the sport of boxing. That he is not just somebody that is on DAZN and DAZN is paying money to, but he legitimately is the face of boxing because he can draw crowds to boxing matches that other people cannot. That is the argument that is laid out because he sold 40,000 seats quickly and may sell out the 60,000 seat capacity that they have there. Now, that I do believe is a fact. Canelo Alvarez is a very popular fighter. He's very popular amongst Mexicans, and there are a lot of Mexicans in Texas because that is exactly what Texas used to be. It used to be Mexico, right? So why doesn't Errol Spence Jr., who also sold out that same stadium, why doesn't that same logic apply to Errol Spence Jr.? Errol Spence Jr. has had multiple successful pay-per-views. Against Mikey Garcia, he sold out 55,000 tickets in Dallas Stadium. Against Sean Porter, he sold out in LA, and he had high pay-per-view numbers. Same thing happened for Danny Garcia, who fought at Texas Stadium, and they sold out to capacity in the middle of a pandemic for him there, right? So you would think, hey, Errol Spence Jr. is doing the same ticket sales as Canelo. He's on pay-per-view. This guy must be a big star, right? Not in the world of American boxing, because as we know, the truth that promoters will say, Abel Sanchez said it. I've been on panels with people and where they've said it, that black fighters don't sell. And that is just a truism, despite the fact that every objective number on major fights says the exact opposite. Why, though, do they get rid of the concept? Do they believe that Errol Spence Jr. did not sell those tickets? Because he fought Mikey Garcia. So it wasn't Errol Spence selling the 55,000 tickets. It was Mikey Garcia that sold them because obviously Mikey Garcia is Mexican, and Texas used to be part of Mexico, and there was a lot of Mexican fans. So that must mean that everybody came for Mikey Garcia. Despite the fact that Errol Spence Jr. is from that town and Mikey Garcia is from California. And the fact that Mikey Garcia has fought in Texas before and has never sold out, much less got 55,000 tickets sold, okay? It's just absolutely ridiculous. But it comes from the idea that is constantly repeated, the gaslighting that constantly takes place against black fighters in the mainstream media. The myth must prevail that black fighters don't sell, no matter what the facts are that you have in front of your face. If you look at the biggest grossing fights in the history of boxing, they will all include either a Mexican or a black American fighter. And let me break it to you. There are only one Mexican fighter and one Mexican American fighter that even make the list. And that is Canelo Alvarez once and Oscar De La Hoya, I do believe 2 or 3 times on the list of the top 15. The rest are riddled with Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather Jr. If you look at who the best-selling guys were in the 1980s, you will see that it was Sugar Ray Leonard. When you look back in the 1950s, you'll see that it was the biggest selling guy was Joe Louis. You will see that throughout the history of boxing. So why do they say that black fighters don't sell? Here's the trick. It is true at a certain level of boxing that black fighters don't sell. That level is the club level. The club level fighters in cities that have this relationship with their promoter. The promoter says, hey, I'm throwing a fight card. Do you want to fight on it? They say, yes, I would love to fight on your fight card. I'm a young up-and-coming fighter or a fighter that can't get major fights on cards by Top Rank or Golden Boy or the PBC. So yes, I want to fight on your fight card. So they say, great, here's a stack of tickets. I need for you to sell these tickets to your supporters. So they will give these to, say, a Polish fighter in Chicago. And the Polish fighter will say, okay, yeah, give me your tickets. And then they will sell those tickets to the community that supports them themselves, right? Maybe 400 tickets, maybe 500 tickets. Who knows what the number of people that attend those shows are? But I would suspect that these shows are less than 1,000 people, probably less than 500 people. And those fighters have to sell the tickets. So the fighters in those areas are not successful at selling those tickets themselves, right? Taking a ticket, walking to somebody and saying, hi, my name is George Smith. Will you buy this ticket from me because I will be fighting down the street in 3 weeks? Black fighters, when under that scenario, who are unknown in local metropolitan areas, are not as successful as selling tickets as people who have more tight-knit communities around them in those cities. That is why they say black fighters don't sell. Not that they can't sell, but literally they do not go out and try to sell the tickets. That is way different from saying that in established boxing promotional outfits on network television where the money is paid for by ESPN or Fox and transmitted to large numbers of people in their community throughout the country and throughout the world, to say that that is not successful is just not true and does not bear out in the facts. At certain point in time, Errol Spence Jr. is going to pop out the top of these stories. The same stories that they told about Deontay Wilder when nobody knows Deontay Wilder is what they said, but if you look at the ratings for Showtime, and Showtime being one of the most established boxing networks that there are in the United States, right? The longest one now, that he gives better numbers on Showtime than Errol Spence did or Gervonta Davis, who nobody doubts are major draws and are known commodities in the boxing world. But yet, somebody that did almost twice the numbers due to the magical logic of these people were unknown in his own country. We just got to stop the nonsense, man. Canelo Alvarez is a big star, no doubt. Very, very popular. When he goes on pay-per-view against a legitimate competitor, it's going to do good numbers. But Canelo Alvarez is not the only fighter that sells. He's not the only big-name fighter. He's just the only big-name fighter that the mainstream media is willing to admit is a big-time fighter in the United States. That's my take on the matter. You let me know yours. And with that, I'm out. Peace.